She was known by countless people as the strongest humanoid weapon maid, and also the most powerful assassin of the Revolutionary Army. Beneath her cute appearance lay grenades hidden under her skirt, and the ability to crush machetes with her teeth. Just when she grew weary of killing and prepared to become a maid to repay the person who saved her life, her master became entangled in political turmoil and died. For this reason, the one once called the Hound picked up her gun again and walked into vengeance, single-handedly taking on an entire trained U.S. military force alone. In 1969 Vietnam, a U.S. Army lieutenant clashed with a despicable teammate to protect a girl. The two then engaged in a duel. "26 years later, in Venezuela, the head of the Lovelace family, one of South America's 13 noble families, died in an explosion. The household was left with only the maid Roberta and the young master Garcia. As the fiercest hound of the Revolutionary Army, Roberta was taken in by the head of the Lovelace family, a friend of her father, when she was being pursued. She was disguised as a maid and hidden in the house. Out of gratitude to Diego, Roberta stayed in the estate as an ordinary maid to care for the family's only son, Garcia. Diego once put his arms around Garcia and Roberta's shoulders and proudly introduced the family weapons displayed in the hall. The Lovelace family motto, "Give alms to the living and flowers to the dead." Wield the sword for justice and impose sanctions on villains, but they will not join the ranks of saints. Roberta thought that rescuing Garcia from the Black Lagoon team was the last time she would hold a gun. It was not until Diego's death that the dormant hound bared her fangs again. This was the path she chose. Even if she would also suffer the torment of karmic flames, this was not the suffering the Lovelace family should endure. She would not use the noble name of revenge. This was merely the mutual slaughter of wild dogs. She would bring the iron hammer of justice to all injustice. The world political situation is turbulent. A group of spies infiltrated Roanapur, but they were shocked by the chaos of the city. At the airport, 7 people had their luggage stolen. Prostitutes were flirting with government officials in broad daylight. The stench of decay was spreading everywhere. At that moment, the colonel spotted a Japanese businessman who stood out on the street. A child bumped into him, but he didn't even react. The child then handed the stolen wallet to an old woman, but the old woman had it taken away from her the moment she opened it. Everyone in the city knew Revi and the Black Lagoon Guild she represented. The unfortunate victim of the wallet theft was Rock. Rock didn't care. He had more than enough to spare, so he might as well give it to the orphans. Revi saw things more clearly. Such charity would only turn those children into corpses. Rock always helped others recklessly, which would eventually harm himself and others. Revi returned the wallet to Rock, but Rock asked her if she believed 2 bullets wouldn't hit the same hole. Revi looked at him strangely. It wasn't about 1 or 2 bullets, but the skulls in the submarine, the twins from Romania, the daughter of the Tokyo Yakuza. For those things, Rock had already lost everything he had, and there were far too many people who treated this place as a graveyard. The police station called the Black Lagoon Guild, asking Dutch to keep an eye on some strange visitors. This wasn't the first time he had received such an unusual request. Someone had arrived on the island, putting the entire city on high alert. Revi got the news from the Moscow hotel. Someone had seen a maid coming ashore. It was Roberta, the Terminator maid who had caused havoc in the city to rescue the kidnapped young master. Dutch gathered the members at a bar. The unlucky owner nearly panicked when he heard the name Roberta. His bar had been ransacked 15 times since he opened it, with the worst incident being Roberta's rampage. He couldn't afford another one like that. The city was buzzing with activity. The Triad had just left, and now the Colombian Mafia had arrived. The headquarters had even brought in the military for this matter, as they were the ones who had kidnapped the maid's young master last time. Gustavo asked Revi for information about Roberta. Revi told him about Roberta's appearance and weapons: a shotgun disguised as an umbrella, a suitcase with a machine gun and grenades, firepower comparable to a small army. Just as Revi and Gustavo were deep in conversation, a person walked into the bar, making the owner's face turn pale. A girl in a maid's outfit introduced herself as Fabiola, a maid of the Lovelace family. She had come at the young master's request to invite the Black Lagoon Guild to the hotel for negotiations. A thug lifted Fabiola up. Was the girl's weight a bit off? Meanwhile, Benny had uncovered the trigger for this series of events. Last October, during a ceremony held by a new faction in Venezuela, a bomb attack occurred, killing the head of the Lovelace family. But Dutch couldn't see how this was connected to the city. In the bar, Gustavo threatened Fabiola to take them to her young master Garcia. Fabiola sighed. A knife sprang from her shoe sole, and she kicked a thug in the crotch. Watching this made a group of men clutch their groins. Several guns were pointed at her simultaneously. Gustavo ordered his men to search her, but Revi deliberately knocked over a wine bottle. Fabiola pulled out 2 Mag 7 shotguns from her sleeves and sprayed the area with bullets. The bar turned into a battlefield again. The owner cursed while hiding behind the counter. Gustavo seized the opportunity to call for reinforcements. On the way, Dutch saw several cars rushing toward the bar. Upon receiving the news that the maid was in the bar, the reinforcements opened fire with heavy machine guns, completely disregarding their teammates' lives. Revi laughed loudly while holding a glass. Fabiola somehow produced a grenade launcher and blew up 2 armored vehicles. She then threatened the surviving gang members to flee. Gustavo, who tried to resist, was also stopped by Revi. When Dutch and Benny arrived, the unlucky owner's bar was once again reduced to ruins. The actions of the Colombian mafia quickly reached Mr. Chang. The fact that uncontrollable people had infiltrated the city greatly displeased him. Fabiola boarded the Black Lagoon's car to head to the hotel. Revi teased Fabiola, asking if all the maids in her family were like Roberta. The Lovelace family appeared significantly wealthier than the last time they were seen, evidenced by their ability to employ 5 maids. Of course, only Fabiola was the combat maid personally protecting Garcia. They arrived at the hotel where Garcia was staying. Fabiola pushed open the door only to find Mr. Chang there. She grabbed her gun and lunged at him but was easily subdued by Mr. Chang. Garcia stopped Fabiola. For now, it seemed Mr. Chang had only come to talk to him. Perhaps because of his father's death, Garcia appeared much more mature than the last time they met. After his father's death, the main members of the right-wing militia were arrested, and the attack was blamed on the right wing's dissatisfaction with the left-wing government. But it was precisely because it was too normal that it became suspicious. The right wing didn't have the technology to carry out the bombing, yet the police treated it as a closed case. After that, officers from the airborne unit, who belonged to the same new faction, visited the Lovelace family. By reviewing the access records of relevant personnel, they identified 6 suspicious individuals from the spy department. All 6 had resigned 2 months before the incident and were assigned as guards around the podium on the day of the bombing. Garcia then produced a photo taken 6 months before the attack, accidentally captured by the military police during a search in another case. The person in the photo was Marcos, the leader of the 6 suspects. The day after seeing the photo, Roberta left Venezuela. It turned out she had discovered Marcos's whereabouts and found him. Soon after, Marcos's body was found by the river. Next was the second person in the photo, Colonel Simon from the NSA. According to the intelligence Marcos provided before his death, the explosion was orchestrated by the NSA. She needed to find out where the other participants in the plan were, even if it meant going against the entire military. Later, Simon's body was discovered in a fire. After that, Roberta booked a ticket to Roanapur. Now, Garcia's purpose in coming to find Black Lagoon became clear. Dutch flatly refused him. Roberta was a bona fide madwoman, but Fabiola said they were not entrusting Black Lagoon but Rock. Garcia earnestly requested Rock to find Roberta. Even so, Dutch still flatly refused. Rock was part of Black Lagoon. He wouldn't risk his employees' lives. Roberta was undeniably insane. But precisely for that reason, Garcia had to find her even more. He also knew this was an unreasonable demand, so he had to steel himself and take action alone. Rock felt Garcia had truly changed, like an adult. After all, with neither his father nor Roberta around, he could only learn to be strong. It was then that Mr. Chang took over the task of finding Roberta. After all, Roberta would eventually cause trouble for the Americans, which would be bad news for both the city and him. Dutch said they didn't care about such matters. City security was Triad's responsibility, but Mr. Chang said Garcia's choice of Rock was a good one. After all, both he and Black Lagoon were neutral parties. Mr. Chang urged Rock to help Garcia. All he needed to do was catch up to Roberta before she met the army. Rock said he needed some time to think. Before leaving, Mr. Chang patted his shoulder. At this rate, Garcia would be completely gray-haired before turning 20. As Mr. Chang said this, Rock felt like someone was holding a gun to his head again. Dutch didn't oppose Rock taking the job. He had only one condition. If Roberta had already met the army, Rock had to back off. Roanapur was divided among many factions. During World War II, it was used as a military port by the Japanese army. After the war, it became a massive drug distribution hub. To this day, it remains a hell on earth. Helping Garcia in such a place meant Rock had to keep thinking. The South American Mafia was the spark for this incident. Gustavo had once said he would send troops. The US military would also be pursuing Roberta. The common thread among these three parties was that they were all genuine soldiers. Rock called Dutch. What did Dutch mean when he said Balalaika owed him a favor? They talked late into the night. Another piece of Rock's puzzle fell into place, but he still felt something wasn't quite right. There were other forces operating in the city. On the other side, Revi went to find Eda to play cards and lost miserably. Eda asked where Rock was, so Revi brought up the matter of Roberta. When she heard US military, Eda's hand froze. Rock stayed up all night, sketching out the rough outline of the plan. In the hotel, Garcia anxiously awaited Rock's reply, but there was no news by dawn. Just as Fabiola was about to leave, Rock and Benny arrived. They then went to a bar reduced to ruins, where the second floor had also been destroyed. The unlucky owner was now taking a group of girls outside to entertain customers. From the owner, Rock learned that Roberta had visited his place the night before, inquiring about shops selling war supplies. While owner acted as a middleman making calls all around, Roberta was chewing stimulants like candy. The owner provided information on 3 shops. Before leaving, the owner asked Rock why he wasn't with Revi. It seemed everyone thought the two were a couple. Although they obtained intelligence, the subsequent negotiations did not go smoothly. All 3 shops turned them away. Fabiola angrily demanded to know from Rock what was going on. Benny sarcastically asked if that wasn't the inevitable outcome, as the shops in the city were suspicious of those searching for the mad maid. Fabiola wanted to search for clues herself, but was stopped by Garcia. Rock wondered why Fabiola wasn't afraid in such a place. Fabiola was born in the slums of Caracas, where she had seen too many thugs and scoundrels in her childhood. Rock asked where Fabiola had learned her shooting and kicking skills, only to be kicked by her. It turned out Garcia didn't know Fabiola had kicking skills. Fabiola's kicking was capoeira, which she had secretly learned at a dojo when she was young. Her birthplace wasn't a good place, so self-defense was necessary. She didn't want to kill people casually, which was why she chose this martial art. Garcia didn't blame Fabiola at all. Instead, he thought she was impressive. Benny agreed with Fabiola's philosophy but suggested that in such a place, it would be better to pull the trigger without hesitation. Garcia saw this as the devil's temptation and didn't want Fabiola to become bloodthirsty. Benny said nothing more and took them back to Mr. Chang's presidential suite, ending their work for the day. He couldn't just stand by and watch the child die, but there was only so much he could do. The church had known for a long time that Ida was a CIA agent. The power struggle between the NSA and CIA has never ceased. The NSA did not inform the CIA about the bombing in Venezuela. The CIA's main task is to expand its power by operating in secrecy, taking advantage of the shift in focus to economic intelligence warfare. The NSA's current actions are undoubtedly hindering them. The most important thing now is to gather intelligence. Yolanda had no objections to her actions. After all, the CIA had paid for Ida's infiltration. On their way back after dropping off Garcia, Rock and Benny happened upon a mafia car. It seemed the gangs in the city had also started moving, just as Rock had predicted the night before. They were going to hold a coordination meeting to discuss how to handle Roberta, but Rock was certain no decision would be made. Mr. Chang would explain the issues related to the maid and her target, but those who didn't understand the seriousness of the matter would disrupt the meeting, like the Italian mafioso who treated it as a joke. At that point, Mr. Chang would clarify that Roberta's target was active-duty soldier, which would alert Balalaika because her troops were soldiers trained for World War I too. The Colombian mafia reacted entirely differently. To maintain good relations with the Revolutionary Army, they proactively offered to deal with Roberta. But Balalaika knew their enemy wasn't the maid but the maid's enemy. Those Americans were clearly waging a drug eradication war. This port had been a city of sin for 35 years. If they tolerated interference from those living in the light, no one would be left standing here. Yet even with this sense of crisis, they couldn't locate Roberta immediately. The same problem deeply troubled Rock. In a basement, Roberta was kneeling on the ground, praying devoutly. The bleeding man told her to stop overdosing on medication. Does she really not intend to return to Garcia's side? Is what she's doing really revenge? No matter how much she atones, it can never make up for the sins of her past. She is only thinking of self-destruction. Roberta pulled out a gun to silence him. The man who brought her clothes was startled and asked who she had been talking to. There was no one else in the room besides herself. Rock found Revi and asked for her help. Revi knew Rock was planning to do the same thing he had done to save Yukio in Japan. Despite Balalaika's threats, he still insisted on his own stance. But this was all just his dangerous personal interest. He hadn't considered what position Revi, who followed him, would be in. Revi wanted to know what name she would accompany him on this foolish mission under. She no longer wanted to go with the flow. Revi had once compared herself to a gun, while Rock was the bullet. A bullet without a gun was nothing more than a pile of lead. If he hadn't come to this city, he would have lived his entire life as ordinary lead. But he came here and became a bullet, and only Revi could ignite him. Revi understood Rock just as well. Rock's bullet was a silver bullet that could even destroy monsters, but if used at the wrong time, it would be devoured by the monster. Revi got dressed and tossed a bullet to Rock. In the end, she was swayed by Rock. The two then took Fabiola to an arms shop to inquire. With Revi's involvement, the shop immediately opened its doors to them. It turned out Roberta had been here, but not to buy a gun. She had come to repair an 18th century Spanish flintlock, the very one hanging on the wall of the Garcia house. Later, they went to find an explosives expert, but it wasn't Roberta who came to see him. It was an informant. At the same time, in the church's confessional, Mr. Chang received contact from CIA agent Ida. The invading force was the Special Operations Unit Gray Fox, under the command of the NSA. Their primary mission was to capture the largest warlord in the Golden Triangle, Xi'an, and deliver him to the Supreme Tribunal. The main raw materials for Triad's drug factories all came from Xi'an. The 18-member Special Forces unit would disguise themselves as tourists on Joy Street, lie low in the town's hotels, and await the attack order. Ida informed Mr. Chang of the specific hiding locations of the personnel and demanded to know their countermeasures. Mr. Chang looked down on the CIA bastards, thinking they were nothing more than the government's lackeys. Ida stated they were not lackeys, but a giant serpent with countless heads, possessing the ability to bring a nation to ruin. They were the only and strongest existence in the world. After Rock convinced Revi, their investigation finally made progress. From the informant, Revi learned the location of Roberta's hideout. During World War II, the Japanese army dug a tunnel here for a protracted war, and Roberta was hiding there. Rock, along with Garcia and Fabiola, headed toward the tunnel. Meanwhile, Gray Fox, lurking in the city, noticed something unusual. Their phones were tapped, the roads were blocked, and there were surveillance personnel everywhere. Many military personnel had also arrived. A major battle awaited them. Revi knew that charging in blindly would be suicide, so she called Shenhua midway. At the same time, the Colombian gang was approaching Gray Fox's hiding spot. They were about to throw grenades when sudden gunfire erupted from behind the door. The person inside then detonated a claymore mine, destroying the entire second floor. The gang members downstairs sensed something was wrong and rushed upstairs, only to find their comrades all dead. Meanwhile, after the colonel led his team onto the rooftop, he spotted a figure on the opposite building and immediately threw a smoke grenade to obscure vision. But Roberta, armed with a Barrett, opened fire. By the time Rock arrived, it was too late. The intense battle had already begun. Garcia still refused to give up on Roberta, but Rock could no longer accompany her. Dutch had warned him that once Roberta engaged the US military, he had to back off. Before leaving, Rock gave Garcia an envelope, telling him to open it only in desperation. Revi told Fabiola that when shooting, one must aim for a kill. One day, she would become an excellent marksman. Fabiola said she would not follow in Revi's footsteps. On the rooftop, Gray Fox was forced to evacuate urgently under Roberta's suppression. At the same time, the Revolutionary Army arrived on the rooftop. But Roberta didn't even dodge, firing her gun and turning her opponents into blood mist. Immediately after, a pole-vaulting figure disappeared from the rooftop. The commander of another army could see that this hunting dog was relentlessly pursuing Gray Fox. Revi and Shenhua stormed into the building where Roberta was located, wiping out the revolutionary squad. However, they forgot to leave a live person to interrogate for intelligence. After searching around, they found one who was barely alive. Revi had Fabiola translate for her, promising to take him to the doctor if he revealed Roberta's location. As soon as the soldier disclosed Roberta's whereabouts, Revi shot him dead. Fabiola couldn't believe Revi was so cruel. In anger, she aimed her gun at Revi. Revi's actions were nothing but wanton killing. The next second, Shenhua's knife was pressed against her neck. If they were going to preach morality now, they might as well retreat. Garcia stopped Fabiola and urged them to move forward. This was a filthy place where everyone was a scoundrel. But that was exactly why they needed such professional troublemakers. That was why he hoped even more that Fabiola would act according to her own beliefs. Gray Fox has now run out of options. It's impossible to shake off the hunting dogs. Rock has set up the chessboard for the U.S. military's withdrawal, while he also awaits the appearance of a key force. Mr. Chang called Rock, urging him to stop. It was precisely because Rock wanted to make the checkmate move in the chess game that Mr. Chang followed suit and placed his bet. But at this point, Rock owes nothing to anyone. What he hates most in the world is hypocrisy. Mr. Chang has completely treated Garcia and the maid as pawns. Rock angrily called Mr. Chang a bastard, only to hear him burst into laughter. Rock's anger stems first from his unwillingness to accept this unwinnable game, and second, because his deepest insecurities were touched. Compared to Rock, Mr. Chang understands people better. This gang leader, deeply entrenched in darkness, was once a Hong Kong police officer who sought to uphold the law. Mr. Chang urged Rock to end the fight quickly, but Rock refused to give up. He would absolutely not let this matter end here. Under Roberta's pursuit, the Revolutionary Army collided with the Colombian gang. The two sides engaged in a firefight, blocking the path of Revi and her group behind them. This time, Shenhua brought along Frederica and Lawton. The continuous gunfire made it impossible to distinguish between the warring sides. The colonel ordered a feint squad to stay behind, then launch a coordinated attack once Roberta appeared. The Colombian gang attempted to ambush the Revolutionary Army from behind, but were trapped by Revi and Shenhua. Taking advantage of the situation, Fabiola rushed toward Roberta with Garcia, only to run into another group of revolutionaries. Fabiola told Garcia to go ahead while she covered the retreat. At that moment, Lawton appeared, drawing the revolutionaries' attention. Frederica cut the Revolutionary Army in half. Amid intense gunfire, Fabiola was forced to separate from Garcia. He hid in a building, hearing footsteps approaching. Frightened, he crouched in a corner, just missing Roberta as she passed by. Using the reflection in a mirror, Roberta observed the Revolutionary Army surrounding her below. Garcia, who had found stimulants on the ground, also sensed Roberta's arrival. He climbed over the corpses to the third floor, only to encounter a standoff between the revolutionary leader and Roberta. He had to hide again. However, Roberta was completely no match for the leader. The leader belonged to Cuba's Special Operations Forces and knew Roberta's moves inside out. The higher-ups wanted Roberta's head, but he didn't. Instead, he wanted to bring Roberta back to the Revolutionary Army. Garcia picked up an iron rod, ready to rescue the maid. But to his surprise, Roberta actually agreed with the leader's proposal. That place was indeed boring, with no bloodshed or gunfire. The master's death was her chance to escape. Her only target was the head of the NSA, and she would go back with him once the job was done. Her thighs wrapped around the leader's waist, and he relished the thrill of conquering a hunting dog. Garcia bit his fingers hard to keep from crying out. The leader pointed a gun at Roberta, ordering her to undress, but to his shock, Roberta's belt buckle fired bullet that hit him. When the leader tried to grab his gun, Roberta stopped him. She had long seen through the Revolutionary Army's true nature and would never return. The only person in this world who could put a collar on her was her master Garcia, the only existence she would risk her life to protect. Roberta slammed into the leader's head, and just then Garcia appeared. To have Garcia see her like this made Roberta break down on the spot, while Garcia fainted from sheer terror. At the same time, the specter reappeared behind her. Roberta had always carried numerous small wounds, hidden beneath the veneer of a peaceful life. If she had chosen to stay with Garcia, the wounds would have healed, but she had wasted that chance with her own hands. If she couldn't earn forgiveness, how could she possibly live with Garcia in the future? Roberta's mind was no longer sound. She believed the current Garcia was a phantom conjured by the specter. The real master must still be waiting for her triumphant return at the manor. Roberta pulled out her gun and aimed it at Garcia. The NSA radio reported that they had located the target and had protected a boy during the chaos. How terrifying can a person be? She can shatter a machete with her teeth, even stop a chainsaw with her bare hands, directly terrifying two famous killers. Roberta easily defeated the reinforcements brought by Revi. Even knowing that Roberta had lost her mind, Fabiola still mustered the courage to run out and stop her. Yet Roberta passed by Fabiola with a gentle smile. Fabiola covered her mouth and cried. She knew the head maid had gone mad. Garcia woke up to find himself taken away by Gray Fox, who clearly didn't know he was the young master of the Lovelace family, only thinking he was a child caught in the crossfire. The colonel promised to take him to a safe place. Although the US military treated him very kindly, the thought that they were the murderers of his father made Garcia's hatred surge. He moved toward the gun held by the corpse. Garcia's situation was also part of Rock's plan. Although the goal was for Garcia to bring back Roberta, whether he could recognize Garcia after overdosing was still a question. If Garcia failed, his nature would undergo a decisive change. Now, Garcia was under the protection of the US military, and the next step was crucial. These 2 days he had been running around for Roberta's sake, and the news had already spread throughout the city. He knew that those who had been secretly observing this city would definitely contact him. Garcia trembled as he aimed his pistol at the colonel. Soldiers rushed over and tackled Garcia to the ground. The colonel ordered his men to release Garcia. They couldn't point guns at children. Garcia berated the colonel for turning his life upside down. At that political rally in Venezuela last October, 10 people were killed. One of them, his father. They had taken his father's life, and another important family member would never return. The colonel handed his loaded pistol to Garcia. He had the right to seek revenge. Garcia recalled his father, who once showed him a painting and asked him to find 4 hidden objects in it. He couldn't spot a single one, but his father simply turned the painting around and easily identified the differences. To see things correctly, one must examine them from multiple angles. Garcia took the gun from the colonel's hand. Ida rode her motorcycle to find Rock, telling him the order placed that morning had been delivered to the designated location. On her way, she encountered the military from the Moscow hotel. Gray Fox was in a tense standoff over Garcia when suddenly, an unknown radio channel interrupted. Balalaika appeared on the roof, warning the colonel that Roberta was right above them. She then fired a shot, forcing Roberta out from behind the window. Roberta leapt down from the building, tackling the colonel to the ground. Soldiers shielded Garcia from danger and fired to push Roberta back. Garcia told the US troops not to harm her. Roberta was another life they had ruined. Roberta recognized Garcia, but she was still far from normal. Under the Moscow hotel's heavy fire, she had no choice but to retreat temporarily, and Balalaika's intervention was also part of Rock's plan. Balalaika values Mr. Chang as an opponent more than fighting the US military. Triad and the Moscow hotel are rivals vying for dominance in this city, but no victor has emerged yet. In the final battle before the truce, Mr. Chang hit Balalaika, causing her to fall into the sea, and it was Dutch who saved her. Because he gave her the chance to seek revenge against Mr. Chang, Balalaika has always felt deeply indebted to Dutch. To expel the unstable factors from the city and settle the score with Mr. Chang, Balalaika joined the melee. As a result, Gray Fox's operational intentions have changed significantly. Even if they continue the mission, they will need means to accomplish it, and Rock offered to provide that. Once the mission is terminated, it will affect the government's reputation, so those people will complete the task even at the cost of their lives. With that, all of Rock's cards except Roberta are in play, and the goods ordered from the church come into effect. Whether the US military or Garcia pays, the church made profit. Rock stopped Ida and asked if her earnings were only this much. The actual ruler of this city is Triad, but Mr. Chang still acts restrained. He has been waiting for someone to provoke Mr. Chang into action. The real boss controlling the entire city from behind. Ida told Rock to stop talking and not to peer into the abyss out of curiosity. Under the cover of the Moscow hotel, the remaining members of Gray Fox are evacuating. The colonel doesn't want to pursue who these people are. He just wants to leave this crazy city as soon as possible. Garcia opens the envelope. Rock told him to read only when he has no other options. It says that if he fails to catch up with Roberta, he should lead the army to the location marked on the map. There, he will prepare transportation. Rock calls Dutch, who is still furious. Although he went against Dutch's orders by interfering in the Roberta matter, This call isn't just an apology. He hopes Dutch will accept a job assignment from the US government. This is legitimate work for the Black Lagoon Guild. They'll send out the troublemaker causing chaos in this city, and another troublesome person will leave with them. Only they can enjoy the fun of bringing this disturbance to a close. Dutch is stunned. He thinks Rock is out of his mind and needs to see a doctor. He was about to say he absolutely wouldn't take this job when Mr. Chang called. Revi and Shenhua were secretly following Gray Fox when gunshots suddenly rang out from upstairs. Both Shenhua and Revi were wounded. Balalaika warned them not to interfere in this war. Fabiola ran to meet up with the young master, while Garcia showed the Colonel Rock's letter. Sure enough, there was a car parked at the designated location for evacuation. After everyone assembled, the Colonel immediately ordered a retreat. Garcia and Fabiola were taken away with them. Despite the chaos, the police never showed up. Outside, the streets remained as bustling as usual. The Colonel thanked Balalaika for her support. In truth, Balalaika's true enemy had always been the US military. It was the battle they had longed for when they were still soldiers. But now they had been reduced to fighting for power with thugs. Still, she asked the Colonel to remember that they maintained their discipline and spirit. Just then, Roberta pursued them again. Balalaika ordered the salute prepared for the Colonel to be fired. A terrifying barrage of firepower rained down on Roberta. The Colonel praised Balalaika's tactics as outstanding, but she couldn't understand why an army with such strength still fell far behind the US military. She had once saved children in a refugee camp during an illegal cross-border operation, which led to her being discharged from the military. Balalaika told the Colonel to leave the city as soon as possible and never be seen by them again. Rock picked up the injured Revi. Everything in this city had collapsed, including his mind. Rock no longer knew what he was doing. He brought Revi to the dock where the US military was already waiting. Dutch ultimately accepted this job and left this insane city with a boat full of people. Rock had prepared everything perfectly from the start, and with Mr. Chang's offer, Dutch couldn't refuse. He found the US military in the cabin. Although he was reluctant to take this job, the payment had been received. He would fulfill his promise until the contract expired, and he didn't think Roberta would die so easily. Benny told the Colonel not to worry. Dutch knew these waterways well, having served in an inland river fleet during the Vietnam War. This group planned to transport them to the Golden Triangle via the Mekong River. At the same time, Roberta boarded a flight to Bangkok, with Ida sitting next to her. She would deliver Roberta to the US military's destination for their final showdown. The torpedo boat stopped on the Mekong River for the night. Fabiola was memorizing English words, while Garcia muttered at the stern that Roberta was still alive. Revi believed this too, because Rock had a follow-up plan. But she was injured and couldn't help, so Fabiola would have to fight when the time came. Fabiola finds Rock too dangerous. Garcia has already suffered significant harm because of him. But Rock is the kind of person who loves to create surprises. Fabiola wonders why Revi doesn't stop him, or is she afraid Rock doesn't possess what she desires? Revi doesn't want to confront Rock's true thoughts because she knows he will cease to shine. If Revi truly loved the peaceful and relaxed Rock, they would have long escaped to live a stable life. Revi believes Fabiola is just like her, while Rock is the complete opposite. But none of this matters to Fabiola. They are only using Rock to bring back Roberta. Fabiola can see Revi's family as miserable, but her own family, though not perfect, has love. After hearing this, Revi laughs, calling Fabiola trash from the slums who dares to dream of becoming like Garcia. Fabiola is tired of arguing with Revi, but Revi won't let it go. Fabiola says Revi is the one who sees Rock as her salvation. Meanwhile, Rock approaches Garcia. A good show is about to begin. Rock is now a complete madman. Garcia is afraid of such Rock. Rock has something to entrust to him. At the same time, Revi's gun is pressed against Fabiola's head. What's needed to speak until the end is decisive power. Fabiola says Revi's smile is the grin of a skull on Halloween. Hearing this, Revi puts away her gun and laughs loudly. She came from the land of the dead with a gun in her arms. Not just her, everyone present is the same. The conversation on both sides ends simultaneously. A refueling ship arrives at night to refuel the torpedo boat. Garcia suddenly jumps off the boat without a word. He's tired of being manipulated by these people. Of course, he's not going to kill himself, he just wants to clear his head. Fabiola, frightened, hurriedly tries to pull Garcia back up, only to be pulled down by Garcia instead. He will no longer be lost. Fabiola must have seen Roberta's crazed state. She doesn't even remember who or what she's avenging. Garcia knows what she truly wants is to atone for her crimes. Garcia swears he will rescue Roberta no matter what. No matter what Rock persuades him to do, he will do anything to achieve his goal. He tells Fabiola to return to Venezuela first. Even alone, he will rescue Roberta. Fabiola suddenly unties her hair, saying this is beyond the master-servant relationship. Fabiola has always treated Garcia as a spoiled young master. She thought Garcia would give up after seeing such a terrifying Roberta, but he didn't. He can't let Roberta be left to rot in the wild. So Fabiola firmly takes Garcia's hand and decides to go find Roberta together. Revi is broken by Fabiola's words. What crap about family love? She grew up in a place where no one protected her. Recalling what happened in her childhood makes her feel nauseous. The torpedo boat entered the Mekong Delta within the scheduled time. Garcia went to see the colonel alone and returned his gun. He would not forgive the colonel's actions, but for now, they needed to reach a consensus. The colonel gathered his teammates and told them they would encounter Roberta's attack again after disembarking. They had to fight with all their might for the mission. Fabiola ran to question Rock about what he had made Garcia do. Rock revealed some details to her. Fabiola was furious that Rock had made Garcia do such things. Could nothing be done to solve the problem? Soon, the torpedo boat arrived at the Golden Triangle. The Gray Fox unit's sea journey ended here. The group left the riverbank in a speedboat. Rock laughed triumphantly. This time, he had won the bet. Mr. Chang had lost. The Gray Fox split into teams and infiltrated the forest, moving cautiously toward the designated location. Just then, one team noticed something unusual. The river in front of the village was filled with rod-like objects. At the same time, the other teams also discovered the same situation. Garcia realized Roberta was already there. Soon, the group arrived near the village, but there were no signs of human activity in the village, and they found several bodies. It turned out Roberta had taken over the entire base. Only the Gray Fox and the hunting dogs remained. Roberta also noticed the army's arrival. She cut off one of the captive's ears and then hid the captive in the jungle, taking out 2 soldiers under the cover of night. The colonel ordered everyone to remove their night vision devices and prepare for close combat. A squad discovered a captive tied to a bomb in the forest. A code was required to disarm the device. The colonel realized this might be a trap and immediately ordered the squad to withdraw from the captive, but it was too late. Steel needles instantly pierced a soldier's chest. She had planted tubes everywhere, a silent declaration that not a single enemy would make it back. The squad in the jungle was like a fish in a barrel, completely unaware of which direction Roberta would attack from. Roberta crawled through the flower field and launched a surprise attack. The bomb's ambush around her exploded. During her escape, the colonel hit her in the leg. Logically, Roberta should have been immobilized, but she didn't stop because of the wound. Garcia knew this was useless. The wound would only enrage her further. Roberta's hands and legs were shot, but she seemed to feel nothing. She went on a rampage in the forest like a madwoman, but was soon left battered and unable to move. Then Garcia's voice came over the intercom, telling her she had to go somewhere. He would be waiting for her there. Disturbed by Fabiola, Revi tosses and turns in the cabin. Meanwhile, Rock remains at the bow, waiting for the battle to unfold. Everything is now dancing to his tune, including the fate of everyone in Roanapur. Revi points her gun at Rock, telling him to leave after finishing this. Yet all Rock sees is the excitement of the impending showdown. By morning, the patrol will arrive, and everything will be exposed. But before that, the outcome will be decided. Revi questions Rock if he knows what position he stands in, pushing himself into a dead end. Rock says he sees the path ahead. He defied Mr. Chang's wishes, and yet the latter did nothing, even allowing him to leave with Garcia. They also didn't kill Roberta, because Mr. Chang doesn't just want to hide Roanapur. He wants to use Roberta to blunt the US military's edge. This is the origin of drugs, with Roanapur as the transit point. By pitting Roberta against the US military, Mr. Chang can cut off any chance of US judicial intervention in the Golden Triangle. But Rock won't let this happen. This is his revenge on Roanapur. He couldn't help those who were destroyed by this place before, but now he will end all misfortune tied to Roanapur. He doesn't care what he becomes. He can't return to his peaceful hometown anyway. Revi asks Rock why he left the twilight for the darkness. Rock knows the battle can only be settled here. Finally, he understands what kind of mindset Revi lives with every day. Without another word, Revi kicks Rock. At the same time, Garcia rushed to meet up with Roberta. He was afraid of what was about to happen. Fabiola didn't know what Rock had told him, but she still hugged Garcia tightly to give him strength. Roberta came to meet Garcia as promised. She no longer knew whether Garcia was really there or just her hallucination. The dead had been talking to her constantly. She wasn't even sure if she was alive or dead. But none of that mattered. As long as she completed her revenge, she would go back. Garcia told Roberta that revenge was no longer important. Roberta couldn't understand why Garcia had given up so easily. After all, it was they who had taken everything away. But Garcia said she wasn't the one to end the crime. He shot the colonel. That was how it would end. Roberta couldn't believe it was the young master who could do such a thing. Garcia had been thinking about what to say to Roberta when he saw her, but words were too inadequate. Garcia aimed his gun at Roberta. He was betting everything here. Let this gamble and revenge all end now. The moment Garcia fired, Roberta instinctively fought back. Roberta explained she hadn't meant to counterattack. Her hands just wouldn't listen. Strangely, despite the shots fired, Roberta remained unharmed. Garcia walked over and kissed Roberta, saying that was the end of it. But just then, the colonel, who had been shot by Garcia, stood up again. Roberta tried to grab her gun, but Garcia stopped her. The colonel and they had all died once. All the sins had already dissipated. He would carry the burden Roberta had to bear. From now on, he would support Roberta, and they would rely on each other for survival. Rock lay on the deck, lost in thought. After dawn, the U.S. military returned to the ship. Everything turned out for the best. Rock finally wore a genuine smile. But then Fabiola suddenly shot Rock. They survived only by luck. It turned out the gun Rock gave Garcia was loaded with blanks. Rock had no regrets. Even so, he won the only thing that mattered. Several months later, Mr. Chang's belated retaliation finally arrived. Roanapur had not changed at all. Viewing the town with living eyes was painful, but it was the path he chose himself. And Rock knew he would also be dragged into the abyss.